Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Gaming with me, Tony Mo, and I'm here today to bring you my thoughts on the Battleborn Open Beta. Battleborn, of course, being the latest from the developers at Gearbox, the same team that brought us Brothers in Arms, Borderlands, in the game that thou shalt not name. So there's actually quite a bit we need to talk about regarding Battleborn. Before we even talk about Battleborn, we have to recognize that Battleborn is part of a rising genre known as the hero shooter genre. A genre that is seeing a lot of very different gameplay experiences, all surrounding the core idea of heroes. Essentially characters that have their own set of personality, their own appearance, their own set of equipment or gear. Now, of course, the other big name in this genre right now is Overwatch. So a lot of people are making comparisons between Battleborn and Overwatch, trying to pit one against the other. And I don't feel this is fair. Having played both of these games, I can tell you that they are very different experiences. Really, the only connection that both of these games have is, number one, they're first-person shooters, and number two, they can be considered hero shooters. That's as far as the comparisons go. If you look at Overwatch, it's a strictly PvP experience, one that takes a lot of its inspiration from classic first-person shooters. You know, we have like the escort missions in Overwatch. They've been around since the days of enemy territory and possibly before that. There's a lot of game modes within Overwatch that we've seen in first-person shooters before. They're simply blending in those hero shooter elements. We have the different heroes in the case of Overwatch that have their different abilities and their different roles to play among their team members. Now, I know there's a lot of other small tidbits in here and there that make Overwatch special, but at its core, that's Overwatch for the sake of comparison in this instance. Now, if we look at Battleborn, again, first-person shooter with hero shooter elements, but it takes most of its inspiration in its gameplay design from MOBAs. There are a lot of MOBA-inspired mechanics within Battleborn's multiplayer experience. Not to mention, Battleborn isn't just competitive multiplayer, it also has a story that can be played single-player or cooperatively. So hopefully that right there, that dialogue alone will help you understand just how different these two games are. At the end of the day, while they are both helping create a similar genre, I think they're going to attract two very different audiences. And it's really just going to be up to you to play both of them and decide which one caters to your preferences more than the other. I don't think anyone's going to say, I play Battleborn, not Overwatch, because Overwatch sucks. I think they're going to say, I play Battleborn, not Overwatch, because I enjoy what Battleborn has to offer more than what Overwatch has to offer, and vice versa. And that's great. You know, two games essentially within the same genre, doing very different things. And I know one day someone will probably put these games into their own genre. Maybe we'll call Battleborn the Heroba. I don't even know. Let's not even go there. Let's actually just talk about Battleborn now. And really the first thing that we need to mention when we talk about Battleborn is its humor, its character, and its personality. Battleborn is an excessively colorful game, not just in the visual department, but also in its character department. You know, you have all these different Battleborns, they're called, essentially the heroes of the game. And much like the humor that exists in Borderlands, you know, it's just everywhere in Battleborn. Okay, you know, so if you like what Borderlands had to offer from a you know, comedy perspective, you're gonna like Battleborn. It's really colorful, the characters are extremely goofy, they don't take their life too seriously, and they kind of like look to you and say, you shouldn't either. Actually, some of them take their life way too seriously, but that's sort of where the humor is at. And what I like about Battleborn is that when you look at Borderlands, right, you had a decent chunk of characters. You had all of the different members of the Borderland, you know, the Vault Finders, essentially. You had the enemies that you went up against. You had, you know, Tiny Tina and Mad Moxie. They were all so incredibly wonderful to interact with. They all brought you laughs. They brought you really great memories and moments. Well, now imagine that times 10, because you have this massive roster of these Battleborn. And not to mention the enemies and the AI that you interact with along the way is, you know, inside of the multiplayer as well as in the campaign. It's Gearbox-style humor thrown at you from every single direction. You can barely handle it, and it's wonderful. I love it to death. I've always been a fan of Gearbox's humor, and if you can appreciate their humor, you are going to love Battleborn from that perspective alone. But let's actually talk about gameplay. You know, what does Battleborn have to offer? As I said, it's not just a competitive multiplayer experience, it also has a story offering. And we'll talk about that a little bit more towards the end. I want to talk about the competitive multiplayer first and everything that goes into making it. And I want to focus on the Meltdown game mode. There are 2 modes available in the beta. There's going to be 3 available at launch. Meltdown and Incursion. Meltdown is what you're seeing right now. Incursion, I felt, was a much weaker mode. And I feel that Meltdown, at the end of the day, is far more representative of the Battleborn multiplayer competitive experience than Incursion was. So that's what we're going to focus on today. It also allows us to talk about every single element that exists within the gameplay mechanics of Battleborn. So to start, Meltdown is a 2-lane PvP-focused game mode. The idea is that you want to escort your minions in either lane, preferably both lane, into the enemy incinerator to sacrifice them. This is going to help you win, essentially. At the same time, the enemy is going to be trying to do the same thing, so you're going to want to kill their minions or kill the actual Battleborn on the other side to prevent them from further escorting their minions into your incinerators. That's the core of how you win at Meltdown. But there's a lot of other elements blended into this game mode, outside of course, understanding which Battleborn you're actually playing. You have to remember that's a huge part of the experience. But the other big standout element of Meltdown, and frankly almost all of the multiplayer modes available in Battleborn, is that you have these nodes on the map in different locations that you can then activate defensive items in. So in the case of the lanes, each lane in the center has a turret that you can spend shards on to activate and then further upgrade to make it more effective at helping you defend your incinerator. Now, shards are acquired by either A, killing enemy minions, or B, actually farming shards. There are actually shards on the map. In the instance of the map that we're playing right now, Paradise, there's a shard located directly in the center that can be farmed for a pretty massive amount of shards. Now, the great thing about shards is that there are actually 2 ways you can spend them. And bear with me, there's a bit of discussion about to happen here, but it is a prime example of amazing game design when it comes to making sure that a multiplayer experience like Battleborn's Meltdown mode is as balanced as it possibly can be. So you're not seeing it right now in this footage, but there are actually gear items that you would find in a similar fashion to League of Legends or Dota that exist within Battleborn. As you play the game, you'll earn credits which you can use to buy packs. You'll also unlock packs by completing challenges and leveling up. These will give you gear items that have their own different ranks and values. For example, you might have a sword. It doesn't actually equip as a sword, it's simply a modifier like an item in League of Legends or Dota or even Smite if you played that, or even, Heroes of the Storm doesn't have items, so that doesn't count. That will modify your character's ability. So say the sword gives me increased critical hit damage. Chances are it also provides a negative effect. That's one way they balance gear items. So I might lose 50% of my health, or 10% of my health, or 500 health, or whatever it is, in order to gain the advantage of that critical hit damage. Now, in order to activate those gear items, once I have them in my loadout and I go into a level, I have to spend shards. So you have 2 things you can do with shards. You can increase your individual character abilities through gear items, or you can help your team overall by activating those turrets and those defense and supply nodes throughout the map. Now, you're probably like, well, Tony, okay, what are you getting at? Why is this balanced? Well, what this means is that a player who just started playing the game, who hasn't acquired a whole boatload of gear, or even a player who has simply ran out of gear, can still be equally effective in supporting their team by activating those nodes on the map. Boom! Super smart game design. An incredible concept and, executed concept in how to balance something like items. It also means that items aren't an integral part of being successful in the game, because again, you can use those shards to upgrade your battlefield components instead. Now, the issue with a game like Dota or League of Legends is that you're required to use item builds in order to be more effective. If you don't use items in League of Legends or Dota, you will not succeed. You cannot compete if you don't use items. That is a core part of those experiences. I'm not knocking Dota or League for having those elements, but Battleborn has found a way to take those elements away and still provide the player with the option to, have items or to help their team. And I love that. I think that makes it more accessible in a really great way. And that's kind of one of the odd things that Battleborn is doing. It's trying to make this competitive experience that in some instances, and possibly in a slightly different design, would cater to a very specific audience. And it's trying to open it up to all of the people who have ever played a Gearbox game, who have ever, liked the idea of a hero shooter or a MOBA, and blending all of this stuff into one and saying, hey, we've done some things here, you should probably check this out. You might just like it. And I really appreciate that. I appreciate that attempt, and I appreciate the fact that I do believe they have succeeded. Meltdown is a spectacularly fun mode. You know, it takes all of the elements that I personally love and appreciate from MOBAs as someone who plays MOBAs, throws them into this first-person shooter, which isn't just a shooter, of course. You're seeing me playing Wrath right now. This is actually the very first match I played, and we're going to talk a little bit about why I wanted to show this off. But, you know, it blends it all into that, and then it says, boom, you know, okay, here's all these little elements. But it makes it very easy to learn, and that's really what I want to talk about next. This was my very first match of the game. Now, I have watched other people play Battleborn, but I hadn't really extensively taken the time to understand what the game was about. You know, I just was like, I'm just going to go into this blind, I'm going to experience it for myself. Right at the start of the match, the AI starts explaining what you're supposed to do in the match in a very, very layman's term fashion. It's very easy for anyone who's listening to understand what they have to do, you know, relatively right from the get-go. That's very important. And on top of that, the whole map design, the UI, the HUD, everything is designed in a very intelligent and easy to understand manner. I think it makes it very easy for new players to the genre, new players to Battleborn, new players to first-person shooters, new players to competitive experiences, to get a rough idea as to what they should be doing. And after just a couple matches, I do feel that even the most uneducated player in this form of gameplay will be able to understand what they're supposed to be doing and when they're supposed to be doing it. Now, obviously, there's a whole nother layer of teamwork and cohesion that has to go into picking your Battleborn and working with one another. But at the core, I think a lot of people are going to be able to pick up Battleborn and play game modes like Meltdown and even Incursion very quickly because the game is very good at teaching the player what the game mode is all about. And that, again, to me, is a really crowning achievement for Battleborn. Mad respect to Gearbox. Just incredibly smart gameplay design, you know? And you have to kind of just, you know, pay your respects to Gearbox at this point. They've gone from so many different areas, you know, starting off with Brothers in Arms, making their way to Borderlands, Let's Ignore Aliens, Colonial Marines, and now Battleborn. 3 very different experiences, all executed, in my opinion, very damn well. So for me, like, you know, I think I want to kind of just try and stress the reasons that I enjoyed Battleborn's Meltdown mode specifically. Number one, the competitive nature of it. I love competitive games. I really do. Not to mention, I got to play my very first match with somebody with the gamer tag of Mr. Buttstallion. So, obvious Borderlands fan enjoying one of Gearbox's new IPs. You know, wonderful. You have the characters, you have the personality of the different Battleborn, and you have the overall color and audio design that the game offers. It's an incredibly beautiful game. You know, I love this sort of hand-drawn art style. You know, I was digging before I did this video. Randy Pitchford actually posted a link, you know, as to the guy behind the artwork, and I wanted to talk about him, and I couldn't find it. So hopefully by the time this video goes live, I'll have it posted down in the description below. But just beautiful, man. Beautiful beyond belief. Colorful, wonderful, vibrant. And you know what? I watched a lot of the closed beta stuff. I watched a lot of people talk about the closed beta from a, you know, critical perspective as to, like, what could be changed, Total Biscuit in particular, and they've changed almost everything that he and other players have mentioned. All of the issues that they had with the game in terms of a lack of clarity because there's too many particle effects on the screen, you know, lack of clarity within the icons that exist in the minimap. Just between the time that the closed beta went down and the open beta went up, they've changed all of that. They've altered it, they've improved it, and just watching, you know, what I saw back then and now playing the game, I could tell the experience has been improved drastically. And that is killer, man. To hold a beta for a game so close to launch and make substantial changes like that, listening to the community, understanding, okay, these are obviously things that we can improve on, and then just doing it, like, damn, dude. I'm just as impressed with the way that Gearbox has been treating developing Battleborn at such a late state as I am with the game itself. And that's really, really, really special and really fantastic. So that's the multiplayer in a nutshell, guys. You know, there's a lot of Battleborn in the game that you're going to be able to unlock as you level up. And that's also a big part of an experience like this. You know, these hero shooters experiences is developing your individual skills with a specific Battleborn in this case. And that's something I really look forward to. You know, I really enjoy Wrath, but I've also played like Miko, who's like the healing mushroom kunai wielding healer. And you have to really love the diversity in the characters in this game. You really genuinely do. And, you know, I've spent time with Soldier 47, and they're all really enjoyable in their own right. Some, I have to say, a little bit more difficult than others based on your playstyle, but I think there is a Battleborn for everyone, and I think over time people are going to get more comfortable with the game, they're going to push out of their comfort zone, they're going to check out other Battleborn, and I think this is going to be one of those games, and I know this is bold to say, that's going to be really easy to play in pubs, you know, to just hop into a public match, play with some randoms, and have a really good time. It's just so straightforward, and you know, telling the player what to do, it's very easy to understand in my opinion, and I think everyone's going to be able to wrap their head around that, and there's going to be some really great, you know, moments, I think, even in public matches for people. Although, you know, there will be the opportunity where there's like a group of highly competitive people playing against another group of highly competitive people, and the game will be at a, you know, played at a much different level. It's going to be interesting to see how Gearbox supports, I guess, competitive play, and I know they've already talking about competitive modes catered specifically to those looking to play the game in its most competitive form, so that's good to hear as well. Let's move forward, though, and let's actually talk about the game's story mode. You know, it has a slew of what they are. They're basically single-run missions. So you run through the mission and you kill a boss at the end of each one. That's the idea. All along the way, you know, you're killing enemies, you're dealing with mini-bosses, you're dealing with small little environmental puzzles, I guess you could say, like deactivating certain elements, and then eventually you fight a boss. Now, I played the very first one, and I played it alone on normal difficulty, and I have to say, I know right from the get-go that had I played it on a harder difficulty with a group of friends, it would have been far more enjoyable. But as it stands, playing it alone on normal difficulty, it just kind of felt like I was going through the motions. Now, I was being very well entertained by the characters throughout the entire thing. I mean, you have to consider the fact that the boss at the end of the first mission is a robot named Jeff who thinks he's a spider. And his AI overlord, Isaac, isn't happy about that. Yeah, comedy ensues, and I was grinning from ear to ear the entire time just on the dialogue alone, even though, as I said, the fight wasn't extremely complex. Now, I have seen some of the other fights that exist in Battleborn's campaign, and some of them are much more challenging than this. There's a lot of boss fight mechanics that you have to understand to be successful. This is the very first one, and as I understand, you know, there's a reason behind making the first one more easy than the other ones, so I don't know that I would spend a lot of time playing this, but I guess at the end of the day, you know, if it's there, a lot of people are going to check it out, and I think, you know, if they play it with friends, and they play it on the harder difficulty, and they genuinely are looking for a challenge, I think there is a really good offering here. I mean, either way, it's really well done, you know, it's not something that was just kind of shoehorned in. It feels really solid, you know, you have really great first-person shooter mechanics with it all. I think the big thing is that, you know, it's probably going to get repetitive for some people. Unlike Borderlands, you're not really acquiring guns and, you know, and gear. You're just, I mean, you have one hero that has the same set of abilities, the same set of equipment, you know, time and time again. The only thing you're going to be able to unlock eventually are different skins for the heroes, which are basically just color alterations. So, you know, I think it's going to be an element of the game that people are going to either like or they're just going to never touch. For me, you know, it's like I'm super on the fence about it. I imagine if I picked up Battleborn and I was playing it, I was playing the multiplayer, you know, I would probably dive into the campaign at some point just for the sake of the story and the characters and the humor. And I guess that's a big driving force behind a Gearbox game like, you know, Borderlands or like Battleborn, is that they can persuade someone like myself who isn't entirely interested in the campaign to play it just for the sake of the laughs, you know, and I guess that's a really big positive. So I don't have too much else to say about the campaign. You know, I'm hoping that before the weekend's over, I'll have the opportunity to play it with some friends, and maybe, you know, my thoughts will be altered a little bit from that point on. But that, guys, in a nutshell, is my time. It's a very big nutshell, actually, probably a 20-minute nutshell. Is my time with the Battleborn open beta. Really, the best thing that you can do as someone who's possibly torn between Battleborn and a game like Overwatch is play the open betas that are available for both of these games. As this video is currently live, the Battleborn beta is still up. It's available on all 3 platforms. You can play it on PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and PC over on Steam. And of course, next month, I think right before the launch of Battleborn, we're going to be seeing the Overwatch open beta. So you're going to play both of these games for free. Take advantage of that. Decide which one provides the experience that you're looking forward towards the most, and then just pull the trigger. Honestly, what I played at both of these games, they are amazing offerings. They're extremely well designed. They've got a lot of character and a lot of personality, and I think at the end of the day, the one thing that we can definitely say about both Battleborn and Overwatch is that they are doing this rising hero shooter genre well. They're doing it damn well. They're paying it proper respects, and I think they are going to be two of the possibly several pioneers that push this genre forward into the future. If you guys have any thoughts for me, anything that I didn't talk about in this video that you'd like to ask me regarding the Battleborn Open Beta, feel free to leave it down in the comment section below. As I said, guys, I really appreciate you watching, but the best thing that you can do as an individual is to play these betas for yourself and create your own opinion and your own thoughts as to whether or not these are something that you're going to want to play moving into the future. Anything else from me, down in the comment section below, and I will see you in the next one.